Thanks, Presiding Officer. I worked as a frontline housing officer for around 6 years. It was a very rewarding and at times tough job, a very good grounding for becoming a councillor and a member of this Parliament, because you see at first hand the daily struggles and challenges faced by people just trying to get by. And in that job, dealing with the benefits system, and particularly the housing benefits system, took up around half of my workload. Helping tenants complete new claim forms, providing evidence of income, change of circumstances forms, advising when people started or ended a job, dealing with errors and mistakes and overpayments, dominated my work and all impacted on the ability of the tenant and their family to afford their rent, feed their family and ultimately keep a roof over their head. And, Presiding Officer, like almost every housing officer in the country, I had to evict people. I had to formally go through an eviction process. I think I did it a dozen times, if I can recall. And only on 2 occasions that I remember was the tenant actually still at the property when the eviction took place. Every other time they had abandoned the property in desperation, or on the odd occasion they had never moved in. But in those circumstances, when someone was there, it was awful. It was a horrible experience and it was desperate. And every housing officer in the country bends over backwards to avoid such a scenario. And today, those staff are dealing with people who are in crisis, dealing with individuals and families with illness or disability, a mental health crisis, debt, people who can't feed themselves or their family, people who are at real risk of destitution, and many families with working parents who are doing their best but battling a system that is broken. Universal credit is in chaos. The SFHA tell us that, Poverty Alliance, Citizens Advice Bureau tell us it, councils and charities tell us it. The only people who pretend it's not are the Tory party who tell us, apparently, that all of these organisations must be telling lies. Well, we see a series of problems with delivery. We see people lose out because the conditionality goalposts are moved. We see sanctions increasing, delays in payments, the 5-week wait for initial payment, delays in ongoing payment, a lack of support for people who don't know how to use IT systems. These are all very real problems that are here and now. And all of us would support the simplification of the social security system. I'm sure we all support that principle. But this is just a cover story. It's a cover story for what this is really about. It's about the systematic slashing of the benefit safety net for the most vulnerable people. And it's about a redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich. It's all part of the Tory class war on the poor, and so cruelly articulated by Michelle Ballantyne's offensive and discriminatory comments of 2 weeks ago, passively endorsed by every single Tory member. Not one of them have spoken out about those comments. Presiding Officer, no one in Scotland or across the UK should face destitution or abject poverty. This is the 6th richest country in the world, for God's sake. We should be ashamed of that fact. And we should be ashamed that life expectancy has fallen for the first time in decades, and that 1 in 4 Scottish children live in poverty. We hear a lot of cliched talk about the state being a corporate parent. What kind of parent, as an act of policy, inflicts such misery on their children? What type of parent forces a £28 a week cut to households with a disabled child? What type of parent penalises their children because their mother was raped? And what type of parent supports a policy that sees evictions of families with children increase? Let me tell you what kind of parent. It's an uncaring parent, it's a neglectful parent, and it's an abusive corporate parent that does that. This is an all-out assault on the low-paid, the poor, the weak and the vulnerable. Families losing thousands of pounds a year. In Scotland, 470,000 people are not getting the real living wage of £9 an hour, an increase of 30,000 on the previous year. We've heard about the rise in food bank use. Kettle packs being distributed to allow people who don't have a cooker or can't afford to put it on to feed themselves. The need for crisis loans is up, rent arrears are up, and in local government we see services, support services like lunch clubs and breakfast clubs and youth work decimated. We see a crisis in mental health with desperate people unable to get the support they need. It's this toxic combination of low pay, benefit cuts and the erosion of essential public services, the ones that hold our society together, that's causing so much damage. Presiding Officer, Tory politicians have the brass neck to come to this Parliament and talk about mental health, about inequality, about poverty, about housing. I tell you, it is the duty of every one of us to call them out in their hypocrisy, their unwillingness to face reality, and their disregard for people in our society who they deem as being unworthy of support. Presiding Officer, finally, the Tories exist to increase equality. They exist to attack the low-paid, the disabled and the vulnerable. But let me tell you this, we will not give you a minute's peace until this appalling system is scrapped.